And now, without further ado, please give a warm welcome to former Arizona police officer and radio host, Brandon Tatum.
I just want to make sure this thing on. Y'all hear me? What's going on, Blexit ATL? What's going on, Blexit ATL? Hey man, I need everybody to stand on your feet. Y'all get up. When I'm in the crowd, when I'm on stage, you got to stand on your feet. You got to get active. Everybody in the back too, I see you. All right, I want y'all to repeat after me, because I think that when we do this call and response, it just pulls this power out of everybody in the room, right? I want you to repeat after me. I'm free. God made me free. Oh, y'all ain't even enthusiastic. I'm free. God made me free. I'm free. God made me free. All right, y'all sit down. Y'all sit down. I want to give a special thanks to all the law enforcement people in the room. Anybody law enforcement? Let's give another round of applause for the military in the room. Now I want y'all to give yourselves a round of applause for being brave enough in such a liberal city to come out and represent the way y'all represent. And I'm very proud. And I'm not saying that just for the heck of it. It's because I know it's difficult. You know, when I first came out and said I'm a conservative, I woke up. I stepped out of the mindset of being a victim. People came after me. And it took some courage. But when I watch somebody like Martin Luther King, it ain't very hard to draw courage from that. When I see everybody in this room, it's not very hard to pull courage from people coming together, believing in something. And I mean really believing in it. Believing it and letting it be a part of your life. So let me tell you a little bit about me. How many people know who I am? I guess I'm doing something right. So I'll tell you, kind of how I got to this point, because those of you who don't know me, you're probably wondering, how's this dude up on stage, just like King Face said, with tattoos, a former police officer, how did I get to this point? Well, I grew up, both of my parents were separated. I can't remember a time, probably one time in my life, that they actually got along. My grandmother had my mother when she was 12 years old. My daddy didn't even really know his father. My mama didn't know her father. I met that man later in life. He lived across the street from our high school and didn't even have the courage to come and say nothing to us. And so that's kind of the background that I came from that led me on a path to feel like it was cool to be like my bigger cousins, who were just had a path to going to jail and doing things that wasn't right. And at 8 years old, I got arrested for smoking marijuana in a vacant house. And 8 years old is when I stopped smoking weed. And for those of you who know anything about smoking weed, we wasn't smoking little joints. We were smoking blunts at 8 years old. And so that put me on a path. But let me tell you this, the power of having my father made all the difference. Let me say that again, because I don't know if y'all heard. The power of having my father made the difference. The power of a strong black man made the difference. Because I didn't just go down there and they checked me in and ring me up and walk me out. They called Mr. Tatum. And Mr. Tatum ain't playing. And I remember my dad coming into that facility and he said, I'm going to kill him. I'm going to kill him. And I remember me and my brother was like, no, y'all can leave us in here. We good right here. Because this whooping is about to be out of control. But my dad did something that was special because he didn't whoop us. And I was ready for it. I don't believe I was ready for it. I thought I was ready for it. I was preparing myself for it. But while we were in the car, we were driving home, and I remember him saying this to me. He said, Brandon, if you don't change your ways, if you don't act with integrity, you will never amount to nothing. You will never be an NBA player. Because at the time, I wanted to be just like Michael Jordan. And that stuck to me harder than any whooping ever could have. And it put me on a path to want to be successful in athletics. But I still had this bad attitude. Growing up around violence gave me this bad attitude. And if you say something wrong to me, you got to throw the hands. Some of y'all know what that means. Now they say smoke. Back in the day, we should say 2-piece with a hot pepper, but some of y'all know what that is. So I used to have that attitude, and it kind of led me into high school still feeling like I had to defend myself and be that way. But one thing that changed is when I went to college. I was an All-American football player in high school, and I went to the University of Arizona. It was primarily white. And I'll tell you how this changed my trajectory, because I grew up in an all-black neighborhood. I went to Paul Laurence Dunbar High School in Fort Worth, Texas. And for those of you who know Paul Laurence Dunbar, the famous black poet, I went to that school, and it was a bunch of drama there. It had some good parts when it comes to athletics, but when it comes to drama and people coming off the street in the school fighting, people pulling guns on each other in the parking lot. And all I knew was the perspective from the black community. And when I went to college, I saw something different. And I was like, dang, I don't think white people hate us as much as I thought they did. I was expecting people to be calling me the N-word and get off the campus, but it didn't happen. And then I realized that it's only two types of people in the world. You got real people and you got fake people. And they come in all different colors. And I think I'm speaking to a lot of y'all's experiences, but the real change that happened in my life is when I found God. I'll never forget that day. 2008, I went down in Jesus' name, came up with the Holy Ghost, and I was speaking in tongues. Some of y'all tongue-filled people know what I'm talking about. I start preaching up in here. But God changed my life. I pulled my doggone pants up and started acting like who God had presented me to be from the very beginning. And what I always tell young people is that when does an apple tree become an apple tree? Not when the apples are falling off, but when it was a seed in the ground. It was already great as a seed in the ground. And I want young people to realize that, and God had to show that to me, that I was great even back in Dunbar High School. I was great even back when I was 8 years old smoking weed. And God had to bring that out of me. And it really caused me to stop looking at race and understand that we're all God's children. No matter what color you are, it don't even matter. And then that led me to, football didn't work out for me. I wanted to go to the league. I was in the 2010 NFL draft. I didn't get drafted, broke my heart. I cried like a baby too, ripped my shirt out, mad at God. How dare you do this to me? But then God had another plan for me. And I had never thought about being a police officer a day in my life. My only experience when I was 8, and they piled us in the car and they called us sardines at the time. And we were all mad. And we were wrong as two left shoes, but we were still mad at them. But I needed an opportunity. I had a college degree. At the time, I had a small son. And I'm like, look, I got to put an X on the calendar because football is not yielding results. I got to transition to something else. I got a mouth to feed. And so I applied for everything in the city of Tucson. The police department called me back. And at first, I'll tell you how the phone call went. So at the time, me and my son's mom, we had gotten into a little argument over the phone. And then the next morning, I get a phone call, and they say, it's the Tucson Police Department. And I'm like, she done called the police on me. God dang. Want a brother to go to jail. And I'm like, yeah, how can I help you? And then they say, well, you applied for the job. And I'm like, oh, okay, yeah, we can talk now. But I knew nothing about policing, so I said, you know what, I got to do a ride-along. I need to go see what this is like, see if I even like it. Went and did a ride-along with an officer named Sean Payne, the greatest man I met other than my daddy. Sean Payne, I pulled up on him in the parking lot. I said, look, man, I just want to do a ride-along. He said, come next week, we can roll. The first time in my life, I saw a hero. The first time in my life. I used to think these NFL players, and nothing against football players, you work hard to get to that point that you're at. But I had never seen a man that went from changing a flat tire of an elderly woman to saving a young man's life who was attempting to commit suicide. We literally went there, we got the call, and we was going 70 miles per hour down a residential street. I ain't never gone that fast in a car that anybody found out about. But we were rolling. We almost died twice because people don't know how to move to the right. And we get to the scene, and he's running through the apartment complex, and they let me kind of run behind him. They kicked the door in, and once they got in, they let me peek around the corner, and the kid was literally cutting his wrist in the back room. It's like it was kids laying on the ground, and they had to jump over these kids. He was on a table cutting his wrist. And the craziest part about this is that when we got back into the car, my heart was still beating. I'm like, what just happened to us? And he went back to asking me, well, how's your family? And I'm like, What family? I got family. You know, so, you know, I just seeing how he was. And he said, look, I do this every day. I do this all day. And I'm like, man, I have to do what this man is doing. I think it's a calling on my life. So I became a police officer. I did everything. I was on the SWAT team. I was a field trainer. I taught at the academy. I did all kinds. I was a PIO. I was a spokesperson for the police department, surprisingly enough. And it just made me change my mentality about how policing in America actually happens. Not what's on the media, not what people say, not what 2 or 3 people felt on a traffic stop, but what's really going on. And what I can say is that it opened my understanding that these officers are out here risking their lives every doggone day, all day. When you go to sleep and you dreaming, I don't know, about 2020 or something, I don't know, you dreaming, they're out there risking their lives. They're out there driving what we call code 3 lights and sirens. They're out here seeing the most horrible things that any human person can see, have to go home to their family and do it again the next day. And I'll tell you this, there's a minimal amount of room for racism on the police department. I'll be the first one to tell you that. There are some idiots on the police department. There's idiots that do your teeth, they're dentists. There's idiots that's your pastor. Not y'all pastor, because y'all pastors are good. I'm talking about the other people down the street. But there's idiots everywhere. But most people are literally trying to do what's right. And let me give you some numbers. Because a young lady on Houston campus told me the other day, she go, my biggest fear is being killed by police officers. And I'm like, dang, we lost, man. Your biggest fear is not heart disease, it's not none of that other stuff. And I said, young lady, do you realize that it's a higher probability of you being struck by lightning than being killed unarmed by police officers? And some of you guys may not know this number because I looked it up. 7 people in the United States of America, 7 black people in the United States of America have been shot unarmed. And anybody that know anything about law enforcement, just because you're unarmed don't mean you're not a deadly threat. But just for the sake of argument, all of them are bad shootings, right? I gave her that. I said 7 of them. There's 40 million black people in America. That number is 0.000000175% of black community is getting killed unarmed. That's like 1 in every 6 million people. 6 million is 12 times the size of Atlanta. And you're telling me that's your biggest fear? That is unjustifiable. What is the media telling us? What are our parents teaching us? We should not have fear of police officers. How about you go down there and fill out an application and become a police officer? If you fear the police officer so much, become one, patrol your own community. Therefore, you can dictate how people are treating your people. Because that's what I did. I signed up and I treated everyone with respect. You know, I prayed for them. I respected them. I gave them hope when they had no hope. And sometimes I gave them hope when I didn't have no hope. And that's what police officers do. Not all of them, but that's what most of them do. And I want us to get out of the mentality of believing what everybody's telling us. That somehow we're these victims. Somehow the white man is just looming over us and waiting for us to mess up so he can throw us out of a job. Listen, if a man turn you down on a job today, you better go down the whole street, that job, until you get a job. Nobody owe you nothing. You work hard for everything you get. And if somebody ever hand you something that ain't worth having, I think we should understand that, internalize that. Because we ain't victims, ladies and gentlemen. We ain't nobody's victims. Nobody in the history of the black community from the time we came in here on ships to today was a victim. They put us in a situation, and what did we do? We escaped through the Bible. I think they can almost preach on his own. The God of the Bible gave us a pathway to be free. We used it then, we should be using it now. If I don't say nothing else, I want us to understand that. Know your position. Know that each and every person in here, you have something that God has put in you that you are supposed to be exercising, right? You're supposed to be displaying to the world. And we will all become better when you find out what that is. Don't be looking down the street at somebody and wondering what they doing. Why you look in the mirror first. What am I doing? What can I do to succeed? How am I treating people? When a cop pulled me over, what am I saying to him first? And this is a principle that my dad always told me. He said, you know, the teacher would say I did something at the school and whatever the case. He's like, no. I said, no, Daddy. The lady, she'd be mean to me and all that. He go, I don't take care of that lady. What did you do? Because you finna get that whooping, not your teacher. So I just want us to understand that two major situations that I want to touch on that I think is being displayed in the media, and I don't want you guys to fall victim to this mentality of jumping on the bandwagon. So there's been the situation in the Central Park 5. How many people know about the Central Park 5? And so here's what I say, and I don't know if people are going to like what I say or not. I can't help that. What I will say is that do your research. Don't just listen to somebody because they SJW and all down the street and they swear they love black people. They are just doing this for money, and they got you out here looking like a fool. If you look at the situation between the Central Park 5 and you read what the president supposedly wrote out in the paper, he didn't even mention the Central Park 5 in the paper. He didn't even mention them not one time. Some of y'all probably didn't know that. Who read what he pulled out in the paper? Didn't mention it one time. He didn't mention them kids by name. Some people try to tell you that they were interviewed and they didn't have an adult. Everybody had an adult present. Don't watch that movie. Don't watch that. That documentary was a lie. We sit there and I looked at the facts and then I watched the documentary and it made my blood boil. They tried to make it seem like these little kids wasn't doing nothing. They were in the park. They brutalized other people, which they were charged with. And then they all admitted to doing some form of harm to that young lady that got killed. And if we look at it and we say, let's stop getting emotional and look at facts so we can actually defend people that need to be defended. I'm going to give you another scenario. Rodney Reed. How many know who Rodney Reed is? Everybody's out. Rodney Reed is innocent. Rodney Reed is innocent. He may be. But did they tell you that he raped 3 other women? Did they tell you that he raped a 12-year-old? No, they didn't tell you that. Yeah. DNA sample came back after he turned himself in for a drug charge, came back that he raped 3 other women. One he kidnapped, one he raped near a train track, and then he broke into the house of a 12-year-old who was by herself and raped her in I don't know how many different directions. He bit her, blindfolded her. Oh, they don't tell you that, did they? They lied to us. And I'm cool with doing an investigation saying, hey, if that brother didn't kill the young lady that they're accusing him of, then he shouldn't be put to death. But the forensic evidence showed that his DNA was on her or in her. And the reason why is because they were in a relationship. They try to tell you that he didn't even know the girl. So I want us to be mindful of these things. It's another situation that came out, and then I'm gonna finish. It's a young lady, Felicity Huffman, got into that school conflict or whatever, right? And then there was a black lady, and I forget her name now. It was a black lady who they said got sentenced to 5 years in prison because she sent her kid to another school. How many of y'all read that situation? How many of y'all believe that she got 5 years for sending her kid to an alternate school? Okay, y'all smart. What am I doing? I need to go sit down. But listen, it was a lie. She had got caught for prostitution, and she had pled to 5 years because of another offense. I'm just stating facts. But that's what I'm saying, y'all. I want us to also understand not only are we not victims, but we need to be informed. Let's not jump on a bandwagon on every situation. When an officer does something wrong, let's do our research. And because I don't like it when people say all black people are this way. I don't like that. And we shouldn't say all cops are this way either. We should be mindful to take each individual situation, do our research, do our due diligence, and say that dude is a piece of crap. He should go to jail. This dude did not do anything. He should be let free. And I know because I'm in the crowd of people who are dedicated, who love this country. Can I get a love this country? That I know I'm speaking to the choir, but I want to thank you guys for coming out. I appreciate you listening to what I have to say. Hopefully there's something I said was sticking to the hearts of everybody, but I want you to stand up one more time before I get off the stage. Repeat after me. I'm free. God made me free. I'm free. God made me free. I'm free. God made me free. Amen. Thank you guys.